Thank you for joining the Chair Chronicles podcast. I'm Carla D. Tillery, your life coach and your favorite auntie. This episode is part of a 4-part series on Have You Had the Talk? The talk is a common expression in the Black community, but usually it's focused around having those conversations with your children about racism. But we need to have more of the talk. So, this series deals with having the talk with our families about unexpected and expected deaths of a loved one, having the talk with our children about racism, having the talk with our family and friends about the psychological impacts of living while Black, and also having the talk about the economic pitfalls that face the Black community. So welcome to the Chair Chronicles. I have a guest today in the studio. We've got the one and only Christopher Tillery.
Yeah, give it up.
And the crowd goes, wow. Inside joke.
For real.
So today I have my husband who is here today joining me on this episode. This is a part of our special 4-part mini-series on Have You Had the Talk?
Yeah.
And today we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of social injustice as it relates to Black and brown people, our interface with the police community. And we're going to be talking about what is it like to father Black sons.
Yes.
This is a critical, I think, conversation because even we parent 2 sons, and I know we've had that conversation, but it seems like we're still having the conversation.
And very important to have it.
It is very important to have it. Yes. So let's start with, just a little bit about what your perspective is fathering Black children. Like, what is that experience like?
There's a lot of good. A lot of good. The joys of having, in my case, two young Black men. I think you did your job. One son, as you know, is 100%. But when you do 2,
so you're really proud of yourself.
Kind of like that a little bit, right. A little bit. But yeah, it's a great thing. It's a great thing.
Right. And with everything that's been going on, we know that Black fathers, or just fathers in general, give advice, right?
Yes.
You give advice on so many different things in life when they're growing up, whether they're riding a bike or learning how to fish or tossing a ball,
Correct,
how to do it the right way, because most fathers want their sons to be some kind of sports athletes. And so there's correct form and all of this. And so all of this bonding that's going on between the father and their sons, whether it's that or whether it's music, because, it's not just about the athleticism, but sometimes your child might be in the creative arts.
That's correct.
And you can give advice on those types of things. And in school, and then with the girls and with cars. And it's like so many different things.
Right.
But the talk is so different from just typical advice to your children.
Yeah, this is very, very life-changing and life-saving.
Life-changing and life-saving. And I know that one of the things that has come up just recently, just talking to a lot of other people, is sometimes in the white community, they don't even understand what the talk is and what that means. They sort of starting to hear some of those things on the news, but never really understood what it was like. And Black fathers typically have to have a lot more included.
Yes.
In their advice to their sons.
Yes, raising a Black young man, yes.
Right. So what was our talk like with our sons? What do you remember?
Initially, I think most of the talk when we started talking a lot was when they became old enough to hang out with friends. Not so much once they leave the backyard and, around the neighborhood riding their bikes and playing in the backyard. When they're able to go out to a party or carnival, anything, a social kind of gathering, we started, how to carry yourself, what to do, what to happen if something does go wrong, to give us a call, no questions asked. So that was, so it'll probably be carnivals, that age, just to drop them off. That's when we started worrying a lot more.
Right. So that was probably in their young teens when we started having those conversations. And they was getting a little bit more independence where they could be out with their friends without us around.
That's correct.
And you're right. I think, but some of that conversation was more about just how to carry yourself, period.
Yes.
It had really not a lot to do with interfacing with the police and all these other things. It was just like, we want you to have a good time, but you need to be safe. You need to be home by a certain time.
And how to stay out of trouble.
And staying out of trouble.
Exactly.
Most of it was just keeping them out of trouble.
Exactly. Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And I think we always told them that they could call us at any time. No questions asked if they were out.
That's correct.
And so why was that so important? Because I know you and I talked about that, but why was it important for us to give that kind of guidance to our sons?
First of all, you're trying to build a trust factor between, the parent and the child. So you want them to be comfortable. If you're always yelling and screaming something bad happens, then I think that sets up a level of a wall they'll put up and not talk to you about serious issues. So we always want our boys to be, our young men to be comfortable in talking with us about anything.
Right.
And we, in our house, we discuss everything.
We do.
Nothing's off the table.
Nothing is off
because
the table.
You just can't pretend life is not going to happen. Dating, girls, crime, whatever. Life is going to happen to everybody. So we will always make sure we're proactive in talking to them about that. And then once they started driving, that was
another level
escalated
of the talk.
Exactly. Yep. Correct.
So what were the kinds of things that you felt was important to share with them when they're at that level, when they have their own vehicles? Because that changes the game.
True.
Because they can now go to places and not tell us and we don't know.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Again, you try to build that trust, but you don't know what situation now that they may come into contact with. And so what was important to say to them at that level? It's beyond just don't get in trouble. It's don't get in trouble and
there are laws. So once they're old enough to have the privilege to drive, now what can happen in a car, how would I say, the consequences are greater once you put a motor vehicle into play. So you have to remember it's your life and somebody else's life as you're driving. So of course you always had, drive carefully, don't speed, you always have that. It's going to happen.
Right.
I have to say when I was young, I drove a little fast sometimes, but so I don't expect a young man, to follow to the T.
But we're not saying.
But we're not saying. We're not promoting, reckless driving. But you have to understand when they're tempted to do certain things.
That's right.
So that's real right there. So once they started driving, like I said, that's a certain different set of circumstances that are very life changing. And besides you possibly getting hurt or someone else, you also have the aspect of law enforcement being involved. You operate a motor vehicle.
That's right. Operating a motor vehicle, I think, does send another level of sort of consequences and different situations and different scenarios that can happen. But what we've seen really lately is that there's been a lot of, this interaction with the police. Our young black men sometimes are struggling.
Correct.
And I know we tried to give very specific guidance to our sons about what to do and what not to do. What were those things? First
of all, being pulled over, it's a little high anxiety in the first place, especially if you don't know why you're being pulled over. Mm-hmm. Are you being profiled? Is it a traffic stop? Is it, you've been in searches, not searches, but stops, routine stops, drunk driving, seat belts, cell phone use.
Right. And even those things are nerve-wracking even for us as adults.
Right. I try to make them light, but
yeah,
but it's not like that all the time.
It's not
especially
like that.
If it's your first time being pulled over. And so we let them know, okay, your license, your registration, and your insurance card. We're always big on make sure they have the proper paperwork to operate a motor vehicle. And also being respectful and showing your hands on the steering wheel.
Right.
And in your tone of voice. Not with an attitude, but you're being very compliant with the officer and his demands. And you have to understand even the officer's body language. You don't know what kind of day he's having or what he's thinking is going to happen that night. Mm-hmm. Remember, he's trying to protect his life too. So I've been stopped and some officer come up they're very calm and casual, let you know what what they believe violation was. Then I've been stopped also where you watch the officer actually with his hand on his service weapon, and he's walking slowly behind you because you're watching him in the mirror, in your side view mirror.
Right.
So you have to be very in tune what's going on around you. So those are things we would give them tips on, actually, on body language and voice commands.
Body language, voice, being aware and in tune to what's
Right.
happening. And one of the things that I think that in those conversations that we had with our sons, a lot of times is like, how do you defend yourself? Because most of the time that's what you want to do.
Right.
You want to defend yourself if the conversation starts to sway away or you feel disrespected. And I know in our, in our other generations, that disrespect is huge.
Exactly.
And it doesn't take much
Right.
to feel disrespected. They feel like a lot of the scenarios where they feel disrespected, I wouldn't interpret it that way, but a lot of times they do. And so those are some of the types of things that I know that they were saying. And it's like, what do you recall we told them about showing signs of respect, even when you feel like you're being disrespected or you're being dishonored, particularly in that situation?
Right. I think we always wanted the lessons we taught them, their character, to show, even in bad situations.
Yes.
So we always try to develop the right character in our young men, our sons. So just take that into a traffic stop. The same thing, we want that to come out. It could be nerve-wracking. You could be nervous, anxious, and the officer might be a little rough with his tone, but to always maintain calm on your part, and just to always practice being calm. And I know you're gonna be nervous. It's or fearful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes you'll feel fear. I mean, you can be driving down the road, all of a sudden you see an officer running behind your lights, and all of a sudden you grip the wheel a little tighter as an adult. Okay, is he after me? And when they go by, you're like, whoo.
I know that's
what did I
right.
do? Because you might have had your hand on the phone. I don't know, but you took some fear in you then. But you try to tell them, especially the first traffic stop, how to not to get used to them, because you won't be pulled over that many times, but how to carry yourself,
right,
and how to remain calm, and let the life lessons we taught you as parents, practice those as you're being stopped.
Things, right? So that when you are approached, that you can kind of have, that ability to stay calm,
right?
Because they're trying to, we have to assume that they're just trying to do their job.
Yes.
And they pulled you over for a valid reason.
Yeah. That's your hope.
That's your hope.
Right.
I do know that with everything else that's happened, that we've seen a lot of incidences, and we've seen it on social media. We've seen these things play out. That's not always the case.
Right.
And again, feeling disrespected or feeling like, you're being racially profiled.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard. And I think more so for our young black men and black men, period, that's difficult.
Right.
It's a difficult situation.
Right. And you share your experiences with them. I've been pulled over being in a nice car, and some might think, what did you do to get that nice car? Mm-hmm. And if you look young, whose car is it? Mm-hmm. Is the car stolen?
Stolen, yeah.
So that, once again, proper paperwork,
right?
Be ready for that. Because just to know, I don't want you to be pulled over being racially profiled, but I do want you prepared just in case, in one particular instance, that's what's going on.
Right. So it's about preparing them for the what ifs and hoping that it doesn't happen.
Exactly.
But it is likely that, they may have some kind of encounter,
right,
and they'll need to know how to handle
exactly.
themselves.
Because our goal is to get home safe.
Yes.
To survive that particular moment. Don't let don't let a simple traffic stop, or it could be out of your car, it could be at a mall, anywhere you want it. It can happen at a restaurant, wherever you are, walking down the street.
Right.
And someone says something that's a crime happened. You don't want that to escalate to where you're in the hospital or possibly dead.
Right. So does it bother you as a black man that you have to have this kind of conversation with your sons?
You would think, with all the years that have passed, that things would be different, but it's not. It's the heart of people, and so it bothers you, but it is a necessary thing that you have to do. a part of life. You have to explain to them, prepare them to life, help them through life.
Right.
To live a long life.
To live a long life. Yeah. So I was reading this article and I wanted to read it, this quote. So it came from Gazette Extra, and they did an article about Black fathers and the conversations that they're having with their children.
All right.
And this just came out a few months ago. So this is the summer of 2020. And it's this one father who was interviewed replied, and he said, "I don't think people understand that a simple traffic stop can lead to a funeral. It's rough to have something that trivial to be that triggering when it shouldn't be. When your child calls, especially your son, saying, 'Dad, they pulled me over. I didn't do anything,' it drives your blood pressure up and it makes you anxious. A lot of time you can't breathe good because a lot of times it ends with your child being murdered. And I specifically say murdered."
Yes.
So how do you relate? I know I relate to that. Just getting sometimes those phone calls and you're not knowing what the phone call is about. But when you see your child's number, you like,
Right.
Oh my God, what's going on?
Right.
And then when it is a situation where they've had an encounter, I'm a Black mother of Black children, but I understand that
Yes.
feeling of anxiousness and your blood pressure going up. Like, what happened? Are you okay? And we not too long ago got a call from my son.
That's correct.
Who had an interaction with the police, and it was not for anything he did wrong, and it was not the officer didn't do. It wasn't like he was there for the right reasons.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Because it was a situation where they were investigating a murder, and this was in a parking lot, and
Right.
our son just so happened to be at that parking lot and got questioned. But what do you remember, and what did you feel when we got that phone call?
When he called, I could feel the anxiety in his voice. I could feel the anger. And because of the questioning was so intense. Mm-hmm. And when you just arrive to a spot and you're being questioned and you're innocent, that gets real nerve-wracking.
Right.
So we were concerned that, first of all, are you okay?
Right.
Have you left the area, the scene, and just trying to get him to calm down, tell him, okay, just go on about your day. Everything's going to be good.
Right.
So you try to encourage him, even though you might still feel anxiety in yourself and your heart's kind of racing still, but you want your son to survive a situation. It's that basically why we talk to them so much about what can happen with an officer or any situation.
Right. And I think our conversations have, as you were saying earlier, when they were young teens, it's about, not getting in trouble.
Right.
And then when they're driving, it's about how to handle yourself if you get stopped. And now it's elevated to the point where this is just life changing. This could alter your life.
Correct.
If you do not have the right tools and strategies to not escalate a situation,
Yes.
to respond the right way. And sometimes you can do everything. And we've seen, a lot of stories lately where even still doing the right thing, you can still lose your life.
Exactly.
Or at least end up in the hospital.
Right. So we always go over the tools. We always try to talk to them about it. Any situation we've sat down, we sit down more lately, and laugh and talk, while eating. And if something comes up, we always try to bring that up.
That's right.
And we try to stay in constant contact, how they're feeling, discuss the situation. So verbally, we engage with them a lot more. It's necessary for to talk to young Black men, whether your son, your nephew, or you're a coach or mentor. It's very necessary, and give them the tools, and then let them talk back to you about their frustrations, fears, and anxiety, and let them say, well, it's not right. And you can say, I agree with you, it's not right, but I'm trying to let you survive another day, live a long life.
Right. And I'd rather them tell us it's not right.
Right.
Than to tell an officer that it's not right.
Because once you become combative, that's when the situation can turn, very quick.
Right. And I feel like nowadays our conversations are more about life-saving tips.
Yes.
Than anything else. And I think it feels disheartening to have these kind of conversations. But I agree, man, it is so necessary.
Right.
And not just with us. So I know, you and I have worked with a lot of young people in the community, and we've taken trips with a lot of young men.
Yes.
And we've had plenty of situations where we've had to be on guard, but more so, not only have we been preparing our kids, but it takes a village to raise
Correct.
a child.
Correct.
And I think, I'm the auntie and you're Uncle Chris to so many.
Yeah, Coach Till,
right.
Yeah.
Or Coach Till. And we've had to have a lot of conversations with other young men.
Yes.
About how to carry themselves. And,
it was
crazy, right?
And then you're talking about, we sponsored AU basketball teams, and we had our teams out at 2 of them. So you're talking approximately 20.
Right, 20 young black
20
kids.
young black men. And the first thing I remember, as we got out the 2 vans, we had, and we're going to get something to eat in between tournament games, AAU basketball tournament games. And I remember you saying, and we were all uniformed.
Right.
So we had the nice hoodies,
always
Proverbs on it with a basketball. So we're all dressed the same. And I remember you telling the young men, take your hoods off.
Right.
And
that was, and I was so adamant about that because that was in the time period when Trayvon Martin was killed, and the hoodie became such a it was so highlighted so much, and the threat, the potential threat of a young kid wearing a hood,
right,
a sweatshirt with a hood on it was a threat,
right,
and I knew where we were. We were going to a mall. I knew where the mall was located.
Yes. High-end mall, right?
High-end mall. And I wanted to make sure that our kids, I had always told them, whenever you in the building, I don't care what building it was, even for the gym, I always say, take your hoodie off,
right,
so that people could see your face and they could see you and there were no issues, to try to hopefully lessen the threat of a kid.
Right.
But I remember being very adamant about it. And when we walked into the mall, with 20 kids, I definitely didn't want 20 kids with hoods on.
Right.
And I think this was even before the time period where you see a lot of the young people in mobs that
right,
were,
correct,
doing different things that they shouldn't be doing,
correct,
criminal activity and all these kind of things like that in stores and malls. This was even before that.
Right.
And, it was still that awareness that our young kids potentially look threatening.
Right.
And whatever tips and tricks we could do to kind of minimize that threat, I was like, yeah, don't do this, don't do that.
And that was, I think, it's crazy because in the back of our mind we already knew we had to go through this scenario and lesson. So like you said, you took the hoodies down, the sweatshirts with hoods. We're all dressed alike. 3 of us, I believe, 3 adults with them,
right?
And we're dressed uniformly also.
Like them.
We opened the mall doors, and when we opened the door, I saw the camera, and I told him, I said, listen, we're gonna use the bathroom, wash our hands and head to the food court. And I said, but security's gonna be here soon. And they kind of looked at me strange. And sure enough, when we hit those doors, security's on their way down to where we were. And I don't know if they thought I was a fortune teller, but once you prepare for the situation, because if it's happened to you, you already know.
That's right.
So I should prepare my young men also for that. So we got that. We went down, and you proceeded to tell them when we get to the food court, how to carry themselves.
That's right.
Don't put your hoodies back up. And it's almost natural for them because they like the hoods up.
Right.
They like the look. If you're feeling chill, you just played. If you're sweating a little bit, you want to keep your body temp, warm. So once again, you went through instructions as we went into the food court and ordering food.
Mm-hmm. Right. How to talk, how to, just
right.
even when you're ordering your food and we're going to sit together and all those types of things to, again,
not to wander. Yeah.
To wander. We didn't want any more attraction drawn
exactly.
to us. We already knew that large group of young black kids
right.
would kind of get some attention, and just walking around, as well, we knew we were being followed. And I remember saying to them, like, if you purchase something,
right.
Let that be the last thing you do.
Right.
And then get out the store.
Exactly.
Don't hang around with packages, opening them, keep them closed, because we didn't want any situations where it could have been somebody trying to steal something or
right.
thought they were stealing something. And so we just had to keep going over these things because, again, it was about their protection.
Correct. And just a simple weekend of basketball, we did not want that to turn into
right.
A loss of life or someone being, taken away.
That's
by the police being called. So we're always on that. And then till people understand that, don't racially profile a young black man. There's a lot of them doing great things. And that's what we always talked about, their character. So just to have that talk, that lesson,
right,
that constant reminder. And that's not the only time, we've had incidents. We've always how to carry themselves, no matter what we're doing at a tournament, if we're playing on the court, whatever. When we leave, when we drop you off at home, we always tell them, listen, be safe, stay out of trouble. You had a great weekend. I'll see you next week at practice,
So do you think our conversation with our sons would be different if we had daughters?
If we had daughters, probably. I probably, with my daughter, I'd be more concerned about boys.
Who she's dating.
What's he all about? To be quite honest,
it's a different talk.
My talk would be probably totally different to you fathers out there. I was blessed to have 2 boys. So but I do have goddaughters. So anyway, I even asked them, about these young men that they're seeing or whoever likes them. But I know also that even young black women are being arrested or profiled in certain ways and being abused also in a traffic stop or a mall scene or whatever out in public. So even then, that conversation should be had too. It might not be as intense and life-threatening as we put it for a young black man, but just to let them know that has to happen. So either their auntie or a friend of the family will talk to them, or their father, just be a strong figure in their life. Yeah. And that's the key we always had. We want to be strong role models in our sons' lives, and also introduce friends in our lives that can do the same.
Right. I do think if we had a daughter, because there's so much awareness now about sex trafficking and things like that. And I think for us as a father parenting sons,
right,
sometimes you don't think about some of those conversations, but I know there's a different kind of conversation probably happening for dads with their daughters.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've, as parents, we've left no rock unturned about what we talk to our sons about.
Absolutely. We talk about everything.
Yeah. So there's no need to pretend that life is not going to happen or certain situations won't come up. But we, first of all, encourage them not to get in that situation. But if it happens, how to handle that situation just in case something does go wrong.
Right.
So it's very important to have as much as you can to talk and develop. It's really a relationship between you and your sons and daughters, and also somebody else's son or daughter.
That's right. Because like I said, it takes a village,
yes,
to raise a child. And I think, when you come into contact with other kids and you've got, their parents and your friends and things like that,
right.
You sort of build this community of building each other and sharing and learning from each other.
Correct.
Because even though we've had certain experiences, they may not be the same as someone else's.
True.
And I know one of the other things that we've always been mindful of is making sure our sons had also other people they could talk to. That's
correct. People that we trusted and had good character. I didn't say flawless, but good character.
Good character, right.
And we tell them, listen, here's who you can talk to. We have great friends in our lives that we do that. And whatever conversation you have with them is a private conversation. Mm-hmm. I don't have to know, and I'm not going to indulge and ask what the conversation was about. But we encourage them, if you can't talk to us or feel uncomfortable talking to us, to please reach out to someone that has life experience,
right,
and good judgment and wisdom and knowledge,
that's right,
in life and experience in life. Not someone that's just
right,
going to tell you work off your feelings, but I want to tell you how to work off knowledge.
That's right. Yeah, if you're gonna send your child to someone, they gotta have some good decision making skills.
Exactly.
Some good judgment. I mean, you want to make sure they're in alignment with like your value system. True. And all those other things. True. But I do think it's important, and I think it's a healthy outlet for
Oh,
children
yes.
to have is to make sure that there's somebody else out there outside of, the parents and the aunties and the uncles and the grandmas of the
Yeah.
world, to make sure that there's someone else that they could talk to.
Exactly.
Because you just never know. And I know sometimes we make sure they got their phone numbers, and we're like, listen, we might not, even if we go on vacation,
Right.
sometimes there's still a fear
Exactly what could happen.
of what could happen.
Right.
And it's not so much, it has nothing to do that we feel like our kids are not, or they're not mature enough to handle themselves. Has absolutely nothing to do with that. It's just that we recognize the fact that there's so many things that are happening out there,
Right.
that you can have good intentions and still not come home safe.
That's true. That's true. So we always said the final, the most important thing is to get home, to survive
Right.
the incident, the traffic stop,
And
the
if we're not
encounter.
home, here's somebody else.
Exactly.
You call them.
Exactly. That's most important.
Yeah.
We can always, even if you feel you're innocent, but not to. Sometimes you can't argue that point right then and there on the street or in the back of officer's car. You can't argue it. Just survive and get home, and we can always take care of that later on. Either it's in court or traffic court or whatever, or just sitting down. That we can handle the situation, and it won't escalate into something life-taking.
Right. And I think that's the hardest thing. It seems from a lot of the sort of situations we've seen, and some of the lives that have been taken, is just that ability not to comply in the moment.
Yes.
It hurts, because it seems like that is one of the driving forces. Not all the time.
Right.
Because, we've seen some other situations where things are just happening out of control. But not utilizing those save my life tips.
Right. Right.
It just seems like things really, really go wrong very quickly.
Yep.
Very quickly.
And we understand that your pride might be hurt. Your innocence might be in question, especially if you're innocent of something where we're accused of. But just remain calm. Work through that situation, because the bottom line is, I want to see you later on, that evening or that weekend. If you don't live at home, I want to see you later on.
Right.
That we can talk again. Right.
So I'm going to read one more quote, because I think that it resonated with me with something else I saw. And this is, again, that same article. And it was another father who said, "You don't want to give anybody an excuse. As an American, you want to say that sucks. But you need to comply today, and you can complain tomorrow."
Yes.
But we need to get to tomorrow. We need to get to tomorrow.
Yeah. And that's all about our survival tips. It's bad you have to call them survival tips for a young black man.
I know.
But it's absolutely necessary. Even, and we talk about young black men, even just black men in general. I've had my moments, but you just want to get through that situation. And like when he said complain later, I can come home and vent.
Right.
And
in a safe place.
Exactly. In a safe place. Tell you my frustration.
Right.
But I don't want that's something so simple. Let me lose my life or be crippled or some situation, or, beaten, when it shouldn't happen for something so small.
Right. Wow. Okay, so what advice, we're going to go out on this, what advice would you give other black fathers and their black sons?
Definitely open up lines of communication, talking. Now, we as black men, and we probably talk about sports and music, but we must recognize we have to really talk about our sons and our daughters about saving their lives and help save their lives. So talk to them constantly. If it's over wings or whatever, just a relaxed setting. All the time doesn't be intense. Like, just don't wait till it happens on TV watching the news, but just take the opportunity where they're sitting outside over a burger, steak, just spending time with them. And as black men, I mean, we're accused of not spending a lot of time with our children anyway, but just take this opportunity to spend time with them and let them understand your experiences, have good friends that been through things, have them talk to them. But just communication, keep the lines of communication open and help them navigate through this life that's been so tough lately for young black men and black men.
That's good. So, wow. So a lot of good nuggets here in terms of, spending the time with them.
Correct.
I do think that that's critical, building relationships not only with your kids, but I think in the community
Oh
at
yes,
large.
yes.
And you also shared a lot about, some of the things we shared in our conversations about how to carry yourselves, how to talk, your body language, your tone.
Right.
All of those things are important because we want our children to get to tomorrow.
Exactly.
Get to tomorrow.
Exactly. If you're put in situations, and like I said, we work with young black men and women, so we just want to be there. Like, consider them your own. If that was my child,
right,
I would want somebody to look out for my child so they can have a long life and not get hurt in any way. So that's where you have to really get proactive as a person. And you see something going on or you feel the need, don't be afraid to help them, navigate through this life.
Right. Absolutely. Well, we hope that you will share your comments and share your experiences. We would love to hear from you. Please feel free to provide those comments on my YouTube channel at Carla D. Tillery. And we hope that you would like this episode and share it with others because it's such, as we've been saying, a necessary conversation. So please share this with other fathers and other moms so that they can make sure that they're having these important conversations with their children because we want all of us to get to tomorrow.
Yes, we do.
So thank you so much for being a part of this mini-series. We hope that you will stay tuned and stay connected on
The Chair Chronicles.